Welcome to Chicago Bulls Chat with C-Red UK. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network. Wherever or however you're listening, make sure to rate, review and subscribe. It helps us out and means you never miss another episode. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave some comments for us to get back to. And for all the C-Red UK action, check out the Discord channel and across the socials. Now, over to your hosts, Matt Hearn and Neil Dunn.
Welcome back. I'm Matt, as usual, joined by Neil. How are we doing, Neil?
I'm not too bad. A few false starts, but we're getting there.
Yeah, obviously professional as ever. Yeah, you're obviously suffering with my man flu that I'm now not suffering with.
Yeah, you seem to have sent it in this direction somehow. More of a head cold than man flu at this stage. I'll try and keep it at bay. But yeah, I do apologise if I sound a bit more baritone on the mic than I normally do.
Yeah, I got in trouble at the weekend for supposedly passing it to my missus anyway, so,
yeah,
sharing's caring.
It's easier just to accept the fact that everything's your fault, right?
Especially where she's concerned, yeah.
Yeah, happy spouse, happy house.
Yeah, apparently. Right, latest Bulls news, and we do actually have some this time.
Yeah.
Obviously, Media Day is going to be the 30th of September.
Yep.
And training camp starts the day after, and it is in Chicago this year.
It is.
Tennessee.
No.
And obviously, on training camp, Bulls are throwing them bodies in there, aren't they?
They sure are.
Another couple of players announced. I think they're at the maximum now, aren't they? Is it 21 they're allowed?
Okay.
Or 20, something like that. I saw the other day. Okay. And they're really going for the whole Chicago Bulls sort of brand with it, aren't they?
They really are, yeah.
Obviously, Talen, Horton, Tucker. Bit of a mouthful. Never actually said his name properly. I've always said THT. From Chicago. He was the first one added. I can't remember what day it was. And then EJ Liddell, who is from Illinois, not Chicago, but no, near enough, was added the day after. I think it's created more questions than anything amongst Bulls Nation.
Yeah, it seems so.
With the earlier edition of Kenny Lofton Jr., we've essentially now got supposedly 4 players fighting for that 15th roster spot, currently occupied by Onuralp Bitim, who we will get into a little bit later on. Not literally. Pause. And obviously the other roster spot up for grabs is that last two-way, which I've heard a few people saying is already Kenny Lofton Jr.'s. So THT, obviously I can't see him getting a two-way or settling in the G League because he's got a lot of NBA experience, and he fits into that mold of young player with NBA experience that AK's supposedly he's trying to sign, even though he looks about 40.
He really does.
He is only 23, apparently. Obviously, NBA champion in his rookie season, of all 6 games that he played, or whatever it was. And it was a bubble ring anyway, so it don't really count. And then obviously he was part of the trade from Lakers to Jazz that took Pat Bev to Lakers. And then he's just basically been at Jazz for the last 2 years, I think. He doesn't particularly move the needle, I don't think.
No.
However, not a bad 15th man to have. If we want more guards, that is.
Yeah. See, that's the problem, and that has been the ongoing issue for a while now, is we are still a guard-heavy team. And like you say, with a player like THT that doesn't necessarily move the needle all that much, is it something to get excited about? Not really. Not for me, anyway.
No, that's what I'm not excited. I just think because of his NBA experience, he's the more obvious option out of all of them. Not my personal choice, but it could just be literally a training camp deal. Go out there, try and prove it, put a bit of competition in place, and could be a future trade asset, or a pretty immediate trade asset, I guess.
Yeah.
And then obviously EJ Liddell. Now, obviously, same draft class as Dale and Terry.
Yeah.
A lot of people had him going in the top 20, and then I think he fell to, was it 41 to Pelicans, and then tore his ACL in Summer League. Missed, obviously, his rookie season. And then last year, he spent more time with the G League outfit, which he put up good numbers. I think he played about 8 games for Pelicans. Garbage time, so can't really read too much into that. But he is somebody that I'd personally like Bulls to keep around, in whether it's that last two-way, down with the G League team, whatever it happens to be. But I think he's going to come in with a little bit of fire because he's trying to basically grasp what he's nearly lost, if that makes sense. He's lost a lot of time in his NBA career. Again, I think is he 23? Maybe a little bit younger.
Fits the mold.
Yeah, and he's that 6'7" power forward / backup 5 that Billy likes, isn't he? So, again, offers more questions than answers, I think. But I guess we'll get more answers following training camp and obviously pre-season, stuff like that. There's always players that get picked up and then waived, and you end up seeing them on Windy City or whatever. So, like I say, I don't know if you've got much on Liddell. I know he's not really done a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of know too much about him because, like you say, we haven't seen that much of him since he became a professional player. But kind of remember him, around the draft when we took Terry, and I looked at a bit of footage of him back then, and I liked what I saw. He's long, he has a touch, he has a shot, but he just hasn't proven himself at the professional level, the NBA level. So, like you say, that sometimes you stick somebody in the corner, and they'll either fight to get out of it, or they'll fold down onto their knees and cry. So let's hope that he's got that kind of dog in him, that he's going to fight his way out of that corner now, and we might get to see something that impresses. And who knows?
Yeah, and I find it a little bit weird that people are not obsessing, but asking so many questions about the 15th spot on the roster, and trying to put a case forward for random players, pretty much, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, obviously Bitim's contract is non-guaranteed, so
and that's what's causing all the questions, right?
Yeah, but there's other players on the roster that people would rather get rid of before OB as well. So, suppose it gives us a little bit of content and something to talk about, and something to look out for, I guess. So, obviously, title of this episode is "We Move," and part of, the idea is that we're moving on. We're going to start our expectations tonight for the certain players and stuff like that. And obviously, we're just kind of sick of hearing about the trades. We've lost this trade, we've lost that trade. But Demar DeRozan has been on Podcast P, Paul George's podcast, and obviously we've both listened to it. As always, enjoyed it. Always enjoy listening to Demar. He's very, I don't know what the word is. He's very open, I think, with a lot of what he says. And I think sometimes that is lost with some players. because they know that they shouldn't say certain things. I mean, Demar, when he goes on podcasts, ends up firing shots, doesn't he? He's done it at Paul George. He was on with what's his name, Jeff Teague last week, and fired one at him. Obviously all taken in jest and stuff like that. Anyway, but obviously coincides with the release of his book today, in fact, which I've got in the post at the minute. So I'm looking forward to reading that. But obviously in this podcast episode with Paul George, he did speak about, obviously, he enjoyed his time in Chicago, but it did kind of say it never really felt like home. Just never. And he would have stayed, because he felt like things weren't done, obviously, through the injury to Lonzo and stuff like that. Obviously, he did mention the other teams that he looked at before going to Sacramento. Was it Heat, Clippers, Lakers, and Sixers? I think it was. And I mean, my sort of thing from it is, he's gone. We know he's gone. We do need to move on, but hopefully, I mean, the way he speaks about his younguns, as he calls them, hopefully he's passed enough on to them. Not necessarily as he says in it, like what does he try to pass on to the young players is, giving players space in the gym to do the workout, turning up on time or being early for things and stuff like that.
Yeah,
things that will get noticed by other or by players that go to another organization, and so you kind of build up a decent reputation as a person rather than a player as well, and you're not going to be a dressing room cancer or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's and I just hope that's comes across in Kobe, Ayo, he will, Talen, because as long as they're sticking around at Bulls, hopefully that obviously it's basically his legacy lives on, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously we don't particularly want players to replicate him on the court because we're trying to move away from that. But obviously, I imagine he's taught him a lot on the court as well.
Yeah, and his work ethics and his ethos and his mindset, that's the stuff that we need to take from Demar and for these young guys. One of the things I didn't realize actually from it was, when he was talking about his youngins and he mentioned Dalen Terry, and I didn't realize that was the first time that he'd ever won the Drew League.
Yeah.
And it was with one of his youngins,
Well, he needed Dalen there to win it, didn't he?
There you go.
So that's the story, and we're sticking to
it. For now, anyway.
Yeah. Until Dalen's gone and joins him in Sacramento or wherever.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, did you take anything else away from it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could probably do a whole podcast talking about that podcast. To be fair, it was really, really enjoyable. It was really insightful. As like you say, Demar always is. He's such a candid talker. He's so, like you say, he's honest and he's real, and it's very enjoyable. And it's what makes his book very exciting to read and very interesting. I can't wait to get it. I too have it ordered. I probably won't have mine for a while because I'm getting it sent to a place in the States before it comes over here. But I got the audiobook and I started listening to that already earlier on today. And the forward is done by Greg Popovich, and he's obviously very eloquent anyway and very good at putting things forward. But the way he speaks about Demar, he doesn't talk about him like he's just some player that played for him. He talks about him like his family, do you know? And talks about things like Demar's family values, and so that was a really nice start to the book, and then it gets into it a little bit, and it's from the onset straight away you can see that Demar's family really mattered to him, and the fact that they were always in LA the whole time he was in Chicago was always going to be a draw on him, I think.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the relationship he's got with Pop, he always speaks about it as well.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing that I took from it was when they were talking about Anthony Edwards and the comments he'd made about, MJ was the only skilled player of that era, which is why he kind of stood out. And it's like Demar said, he doesn't know the full context. He's only seen the headlines. But it was something that, although he likes Anthony Edwards as a player, he actually got his jersey last season or whatever he said it was.
He said he was going to wear it.
And he asked him for it as well, apparently. But he said, he doesn't like the young players saying stuff like that because you've got to respect. It's like respect for the game, respect, as he said, the OGs and stuff like that. And I thought, again, if that's the sort of thing that he's passing down to the likes of Talen, because I don't know about you, but Talen looked different last year to his rookie year. There wasn't as much clowning around, as much dancing and stuff like that. So has Demar got in his ear and said, look, have fun, but kind of not grow up as such, but take it a bit more serious. Yeah. Do it off camera as such, rather than, you can be, because it's like Kobe, he's the same, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He seems to have still goofs around, but he grew into that leader type role and stuff like that, knowing when to do it and when not to do it. And I thought that was quite good, he wasn't slating Anthony Edwards in any way. It was just kind of like he doesn't agree with the young players coming in. It was from a question that was asked, I think, on it by the co-host. So,
and it was quite interesting where he went with it as well. That he was like saying, he hopes that Anthony Edwards at some point down the road after his career is looking to defend how they played the game.
Yeah,
because he's hoping that the game will continue to evolve.
Yeah,
and get better and better,
But still respect where the game is and where it's been, sort of thing. So
exactly that.
So if you haven't listened to it, go check it out.
It's really
good listen. And continuing the moving on theme.
Theme down in London. Theme.
I am in London. Sick. Zach Lavine. Obviously, it's come out. I think it come from Joe Cowley, so it's probably not true. But that Bulls are trying to rebuild the relationship with Zach Lavine. I don't think it's exactly breaking news.
No.
I think it's kind of a given.
The fact that he's still on the roster, they're going to have to, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know the Bulls put out a post the other day about the Bears season starting, and Zach was on that. I've seen him on a few other sort of media posts from Bulls. At the end of the day, he is on the roster, but I don't think he's the face of the organization as such anymore. No. I think that's been taken by Kobe now.
I agree.
Because he's got the adverts now, the billboards supposedly around the sort of city and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, they couldn't go into media day, training camp, all that sort of stuff with this feeling of animosity between them, could they? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help the team. Yeah, and it's not going to help Zach. And ultimately, it wouldn't help Zach get moved. No. If that's, obviously, that is the goal, whether it's by trade deadline or the off-season, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if Zach does come back and he does get back to, I mean, it's like we've always said, he's not become a bad player overnight. It's just his reputation is that shot now. Yeah. It's that what he's got to build back up. If he comes back and he does what he does and teams still don't want him, Bulls are stuck with him. So you can't have that feeling of animosity there, and at the end of the day, he's good friends with Kobe White. He's obviously been with Kobe for Kobe's whole career. He's good friends with Vooch. He's friends with these players, and he hasn't, him and Demar have spoke recently about their friendship. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so he hasn't fallen out with the team. Obviously, he's fallen out with Billy. He's fell out of favour with the front office. He's fell out of favour with the fans. And you got to kind of think to yourself, how much more can Zach's credibility take? You know, how many more hits can it take? How many more not? You know, he's got to do that. And to do that, he's got to have the team around him as well, hasn't he? He's got to have the team fighting for him, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, that's something else that Demar spoke about in that pod, was how him and Zach used to have conversations even last year about the possibility of trades, about the business side of the NBA and stuff like that. And he said at any time you could be gone like that. You know what I mean? And you don't want to particularly leave a team on a bad, you know, it's like I say, Zach's not become a bad player, but the fans no longer want him there, and that to me is quite. I'm not saying that it's all fans, because I know some fans are fighting for him now, but to me that's quite disappointing, because Zach's given his all, you know, in the time he's been in Chicago. Unfortunately, he's just not that guy.
Nope.
And he hasn't had the team around him. And when we thought we had the team around him, he started getting injuries. Lonzo gets injured. And, you know, because we saw what it was for them first few games where they were together, and was him and Demar getting on the cover of Slam and stuff like that. It's, you know, that it's always seems to be with Zach what could have been. And I think that's how he's going to leave Chicago, is what could have been. Do you know what I mean? When he eventually leaves. So, yeah, I mean, what do you make of the whole trying to rebuild his?
Yeah, I think they've got no choice but to try and rebuild it. They've got no choice but to try and at least mend, if not fix, some of the bridges that have been broken. For like you say, both sides of the party, because Zach is obviously stuck in Chicago. It's not that the Bulls aren't letting him leave. The Bulls tried to facilitate a move for Zach, whether he requested it or not, or whether Clutch requested it or not. It's still, they tried to facilitate something, and the market just wasn't there for him. So he knows that. That must be a real ego slam for him too. And yet, at the same time, he's got to reflect on the fact that when he stopped playing for the Bulls looked better. So you've got that whole like, well, you know, I'm maybe not in a position that I thought I was in, that I could go out there, demand to go wherever I want, however I want, whenever I want. And I'm stuck here in Chicago playing for this team. So his ego has taken a hit. And at the same time, the fans have lost their faith in him, the same way as the rest of the league have lost their faith in him. So it's a catch-22 situation from both sides of the party. So Zach needs to go out and play his best and concentrate and focus on being the best player he can be for Chicago until he's no longer in Chicago, whether that's this year, next year, or at the end of his contract in 3 years' time. And as for Billy Donovan, I'd like to think that Billy will get in contact with Zach, take him out for a meal or something, and sit down with him and try and talk things through.
Apparently, he's flown out to LA, hasn't he, Billy, to speak with Zach.
I hadn't heard that. See, there you go. That makes sense.
I don't know when I think it was like right at the start of the off season or whenever it was.
Okay, that slipped past me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was who said it. It might have been Casey Johnson, and then it's been spread from that. But yeah, so again, we don't know what conversations have been had. We don't know, you know, like at the end of the day, the Bulls social media team aren't in these conversations. You know, the guys who put the posts out on Twitter aren't in the conversations. So are they subconsciously doing it? Have they been told to do it?
Oh, I'd say there's meetings where they sit down, they discuss, you know, this is the plan for what way we're going to try and take things. We're going to try and, you know, let's try and boost this player. No doubt. And someone has sat there and said to them, right, focus on raising Zach's opinion or the opinion of Zach around the fan base.
But let it be known, it's not his team anymore.
Yeah, well, I think Zach has nobody but himself to blame, because he was handed the team. He was the face of the franchise. He was as good as being told, look, this is your team now. And it's like you say, and like I've said in the past, he's just not that guy. That doesn't make him a bad player. That doesn't mean I don't like Zach. I don't particularly like Zach for the Bulls anymore. But it doesn't mean that I don't like Zach. It doesn't mean I don't rate him as an NBA player. He's incredible. I mean, he is. There's no two ways about it. And he could still come back and play incredible for the Bulls, and I hope he does. But he is not that A1 player for the Bulls anyway. And should have been. And absolutely should have. Hands down should have been. And he just wasn't.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's got to do with his advisors and his, obviously clutch and stuff like that. They're behind a lot of it. I think they've advised him wrong.
Yeah, I don't think Clutch have done him any favors.
No, and it's an unfortunate situation, I think, more than anything, and it's something else that leads to a lot more questions than answers as well, isn't it? So
yeah,
but yeah. And before we get into our expectations, I did say to you that I had a question for you, and it's not really Bulls related, basketball related, but not Bulls related. Well, kind of.
Okay.
Obviously, big news in Chicago was Angel Reese season-ending injury.
Right.
And obviously, I wanted your quick take on that and what it means to you. But also the fact that
to me.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that. But obviously, she's also put out, or there's a clip going around where she's saying that she's going to turn up to Bulls games and stuff like that. And what's your take on that?
Okay, first and foremost, right? And you've done this to me on purpose, and I know you have.
Yep.
Because controversially or not, I'm not a big believer in the Angel Reese movement just yet, right? That's not to say that she won't get there. And I'm not saying that she won't get there, but right now, in her rookie year, I know she's put up numbers that have blown people away,
Rebounds.
right? Rebounds more than anything else. But there's just an awful lot about her game that I don't particularly rate yet, right? For me, the rookie of the year is Caitlin Clark. Anyway, I know, controversial, shoot me, but that's my opinion, right? That's a bit harsh. Well, I'm gonna have to do something with that. All right.
You come on, you can't slate Angel Reese without being called racist.
It's got absolutely nothing to do with the color of anybody's skin. I couldn't give two shits about any of that stuff. It doesn't matter to me. For me, it's all about the basketball. It's all about the floor, what happens on the floor.
Yeah.
I can give a toss.
Obviously, that is in jest.
Yeah.
I'm not racist.
Not at all. But what bothers me the most with Angel Reese is the distraction off the court. Right? And now with this statement that she said that she's going to start turning up to Chicago Bulls game, I don't care if she turns up to Chicago Bulls games. If she sits there and she enjoys the basketball, she shuts her mouth. But what I don't want it to become is a distraction away from the Chicago Bulls basketball. If it becomes a distraction for any of the players or starts creating some sort of a media flurry that starts interfering with what's happening on the floor and in training sessions, that's where I'll have a problem with it. But look, Bulls players go along and they support the Sky. It's good to hear that Sky players are going to come along and support the Bulls. I'm all for that. Just don't become a media distraction. That's all.
Yeah.
What is your take? Because that was obviously a loaded question.
Yeah. Well, obviously, as I've said before, I don't watch WNBA, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's women or whatever. I just don't have the time to do it. And like I said to you about something earlier, if I can't fully invest in something, I can't give it any time. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't feel it's the right way to do it. You know, I don't watch other basketball. You know, whether it's college basketball, British basketball, whatever, because I'm not invested in it. I don't have a team and what have you. So as far as, and I've said time and time again, I'm not one of these that, because I'm a Bulls fan, makes me a Blackhawks fan, makes me a Sky fan, makes me a Bears fan, because, you know, obviously apart from ice hockey, I don't watch any of them sports anyway.
Plus, you don't live in Chicago. If you lived in Chicago, you'd support all the Chicago teams.
Yeah. And so as far as like with Angel Reese, I mean, I just don't like her. I don't like the whole the way that
I tried to give reasoning.
I mean, like I say, not even a basketball. I just don't like the way that she's been built up. And I know they're trying to build the WNBA, and I'm all for that. You know, I've got nothing against women's sport. Sometimes I find it more enjoyable than men's sport because I find they're trying to prove something, so they're a bit more competitive, and it's not all about money. You know, but as far as like Angel Reese is concerned, I mean, the first thing that, you know, because she's got this new podcast that she started, and this is where this thing's come from about her turning up at Bulls games. And the first thing she says is, not because I'm involved with any of the players. And it's like, well, did you need to say that? You know, did anybody ask you that? Is anybody even interested?
But it's like she has this thought that, well, everybody wants her, so she has to, you know, say that. That needs to be there as a proviso, like, you know.
Yeah. And look, I mean, the whole Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing is good for the WNBA. I get that.
Yeah.
Like I say, to me, the clips that I've seen of her playing, I don't. I mean, she's got an ugly shot. She's got an ugly run. You know, the clips don't do her any justice. For compared to the stats that get thrown out there as well, like, you know, 3 of 15 from the field and 21 rebounds or whatever it happens to be. You know, it's, if that's what you want to watch, yeah, all for it. But like you said, Caitlin Clark's putting up triple doubles. She's getting the assists. She's getting the points. You know, she gets rebounds as well. Not as many, obviously, but yeah, I'd say for me, rookie of the year as well. But that's yeah, and that's not me being racist either. I just don't like Angel Reese. And to be fair, I'm not going to get excited if she turns up at a Bulls game.
No,
you know, she's just a Sky player turning up to watch Bulls, the same as like you said. I mean, P. Will was watching Sky the other day. I don't get excited about that either. It's, you know,
yeah.
So yeah, maybe not as controversial as could have been, but I'll send it to the merch ad, and then we'll be back with our first lot of expectations. Help support the podcast and the brand at C-Red UK by heading to our merch site, where you'll find a variety of designs on things like mugs, t-shirts and hoodies, including our Buzelis and Flop of the Fro, with plenty more designs still to come. Link is in the description. Yeah, welcome back. Like I say, we're going to start our 24-25 season player expectations. And obviously, as we did last year, we're going to give our predicted grades, what we think how we think their season will go. And then at the end of the season, obviously, we'll put it out on Twitter and get the actual grade off.
See how wrong we were.
I don't think we did too bad last year, to be fair.
No.
Or this year, whatever you want to call it.
Last season.
Yeah, I think a few did sort of go a little bit all over, but and obviously we're going to go through the roster in alphabetical order, the 15-man roster as it is, not as it could be with THT and Liddell and Kenny Lofton and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So first up, Lonzo Ball, possibly, maybe, who knows?
I think it's looking more likely, but for how many minutes? For how many weeks?
How many
How
games?
many games?
Yeah. Now, I've not tried to hide my opinion, shall we say, on Lonzo Ball coming back. I don't want him to, basically. You know, love the fact that he's healthy enough to come back and that he's got the health back and all that sort of stuff after the injury, because you don't wish injury on anybody, especially somebody young and that had the full career in front of them, basically. But there's too many questions around this team as it is, and for the last 2 years we've had so many questions around Lonzo Ball. Is he coming back? Will he come back? No, he's not coming back. Could he come back? And them questions are still there, but the team has too many other questions around it, and I just think that with Lonzo coming back, it takes minutes away from somebody that potentially here a lot longer than Lonzo, that we've also got questions about. And for me personally, I'd rather see someone like Talen Terry get 15 minutes a night than Lonzo Ball. But, I'm not saying that, obviously, with Lonzo, I'm not saying that Talen Terry is a better player than Lonzo, because obviously Lonzo could still offer quite a bit. He's not going to be the player he was. Like you just said, how long is he going to be there for? Do you know what I mean? I just don't want Bulls coming into the season thinking, right, Lonzo's going to be our 7th man. We're going to give him 15 minutes. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, so that somebody else falls down the rotation, and then 2 games into the season, Lonzo Ball's done. There's just no consistency with Lonzo. The only thing that has been consistent is injuries.
Yeah.
And I just can't look any further than that when it comes to him. So, obviously, before I give my sort of expectation and grade, I'll let you give your opinion.
Yeah, see, I differ slightly from you. Not majorly, but because I can see all the points you're making, and they're all absolutely valid points. But it's hard not to love the story behind this, right? Nobody's ever done this before, come back from this kind of an injury to this level. I genuinely thought he was done. I did not think we would ever see him back in an NBA jersey, let alone in a Bulls jersey. And I'm all on for giving it a shot, seeing how it works out, seeing what kind of a player he is, how many minutes he can manage, what he can impart on some of these younger guys, because he has a court vision that is exceeding everybody on the team, even Josh Giddey, and could maybe potentially even show Josh some of the tips and tricks that he's picked up that Josh can apply to his own skills and talents and help him become a more complete player. I just think that there is stuff to be offered by Lonzo, but the problem is this high risk, unknown reward, isn't it? It's not high risk, high reward, or high risk, low reward. We don't know what to expect. And I suppose because this is a complete anomaly at this stage, we can't put any expectations on it because we've no clue. He could go and blow his knee out again just in training camp, and never see a game all season long, and then we're kind of back to that situation again where he's in rehab for the full season, and the roster spot's technically gone. So I get your point, but so far what he's done has surpassed what anybody thought he could manage. So who's to say at this stage that there's not a Rocky Balboa story here, right? And that he might not make some sort of miraculous comeback and inject something back into his career and inject something back into the Bulls for the season that he's got left with them while he's doing that. Now, I know all signs point to it probably being more likely what you're saying than what I'm saying, but everybody loves an underdog story. I love an underdog story, and I'd love to see this work out. And could you imagine if he comes in the first couple of months of coming back, starts to find his fitness level, starts to look a little bit like the player that he was, and has, even if it's only one, has a monster game. The morale boost that's going to bring to Bulls fans, to the team, and to the coaching staff, I just think that alone could make it quite interesting. And I was off the Lonzo Ball excitement train, but it's kind of, as it's getting closer to becoming a reality, I'm kind of getting a little bit more hyped about it again, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, like I said, I like the story. It's, like I said, I wouldn't wish anybody to have to retire the way that he potentially could have done.
Yeah.
And potentially still could.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would be a good story, but I don't want a good story. I want a good team, and
whether Alonso is or isn't on this team, it's not going to be a good team this year anyway.
No, but I mean, is he going to have any sort of trade value if he comes back? Or our team's just going to say, right, we'll wait till he's a free agent and we'll offer him the smallest deal that we can, and as a 15th man? Or is he, is he actually going to be a contributing factor to somebody? So I mean, there's too many questions, and I'm just
I'd look at a team like Charlotte there, right? Charlotte are trying to climb back up again, up the ranks again this season coming up. I do think that they're going to be better than they were last season. They've got LaMelo back. What's to say that they don't try a PR stunt like, let's bring Lonzo in as well and have a pair of balls?
which we've never seen in the league because both of them are always injured.
There's always one of them injured.
Yeah, I'm sure that, is it Leangelo, the third one? His son might make it at some point, but
maybe
if you listen to Lavari, will be anyway. It's going to be
the
2040 MVP or whatever he says. Yeah. So obviously expectations, grades. Expectations. I don't expect a lot. I don't expect.
Let me ask you this: how many minutes do you expect him to play if he stays healthy?
I don't think he's going to be a starter for one.
No,
I definitely don't want to see him be a starter. No more than 15, 10 to 15, if he shows any signs of health. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then this is what I mean. I don't want, the first 6 months the first half of the season for him to show these signs, and then Bulls go, oh, he's healthy, let's give him 25 minutes.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
And then
because
blow him out.
Yeah. It's just I mean, let's say I've got no expectations, so the grade that I'm predicting for him is a D. That's if he plays.
Okay, I thought you'd actually go lower than that. Yeah, I've graded, because it's so hard to know with Lonzo. I guess I've graded him on the way I expect him to play if he stays healthy, which is very, very high limited minutes. I would expect him to come in probably only getting about 6 or 7 minutes to begin with, maybe extending that up to double figures, 12 to 15 absolute max. I think with them putting Josh Giddey in there, that he was put in there as a replacement to Lonzo for the future. And with that, you don't really want to see Lonzo taking too many minutes from him unless he completely turns his career around. So based on that fact, I went with a D+. So not too far away.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lonzo's going to be too hard to predict because we just don't know. Next player, and obviously we've already spoke about him a little bit in this battle for the 15th roster spot, is Onuralp Bitim.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I like him. I mean, I've even got his jersey.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see him out the door. But at the same time, I don't think he makes any sort of impact on the roster mainly because I don't think he gets given the opportunity.
Right.
There's too many players in front of him that are going to get the opportunity. Depending on what position you see him as, whether you see him as a 2 or a 3, you've got obviously Zach, obviously Buzelis, Phillips, Terry, Duarte could be thrown into there if you see him getting any sort of minutes. Lonzo Ball. So yeah,
Kobe even.
Yeah. And this is going back to what I said about THT, that I think he offers more as that 15th man, is if Lonzo can't play for any reason, you've got a combo guard in THT as a 15th man that can come in and he's proven he can give you 20 minutes or whatever it was off the bench, putting up 10 points a night, and then whatever else he's putting up. And I don't think OB's had that chance to do that. Obviously, the eye injury he got, took it away from him a little bit.
Yeah.
And like I say, I just think that he doesn't have enough in his game to put himself ahead of them players just mentioned. My sort of ideal thing is that he gets that last two-way, if that's a possibility. I don't know if you can waive a player and then put them on a two-way or whatever it happens to be.
I think you can.
To me, that's the ideal one, where so he's still in the organisation.
Yeah.
And he can come up if we need him.
Because he's on a non-guaranteed deal. So I think the fact that he's non-guaranteed, I think you can.
Yeah. I think, is it partially guaranteed until opening night or whatever it is, and then he gets guaranteed so much more. And I think even up until January they can waive him without fully guaranteeing his contract or something, can't they? So, but yeah, I think he doesn't offer enough to break the rotations in any sort of way, but he offers enough to keep him in the organisation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the fact that last season got cut short for him hasn't helped him in any sort of way at all. Do you know what I mean? Because he's now essentially, it's like he's back to square one. He's got to try and prove himself all over again. And it was a nice story. It seems to be the theme: good stories, nice stories, whatever. Last year, won it, a bit of the underdog. We brought him in as a bit of an unknown from Turkey, and he come in and played. Was it against Cavs where he played all of overtime as well and put up whatever he put up? And yeah, it just never seemed to go anywhere from that, did it?
No. Well, shortly after that, he got the injury. He kept playing, I think, for a couple of games with it, but it got another hit into the eye.
Yeah,
and then that was the end of it. But I look, as anyone that listens to this knows, we've always kind of liked Bitim, and I'd like to see him, like you say. I like the idea of him staying within the organisation, and unless he shoots lights out during training camp, I don't think they find a place for him in that final roster spot. I do think he'll be dropped for someone else, but I'd like him to prove what he can do and hold on to that spot. But even if he takes that spot, it's like you say, bench warming for the season anyway. I mean, I don't think he's going to see much court time. All he'll see is like 1 or 2 minutes garbage time at the end of games, which, in fairness, I suppose there could be a bit of that if this team really is as bad as some people think they're going to be. So yeah, I just he's of everybody that we've got to try and come up with a grade for. I think Bitim is the most difficult because I actually don't expect to see him on the roster next season. So what did you go for in a grade?
I went U, as in ungraded, because
I did too.
like you just said, I don't think he's going to be on the roster.
I did the very same thing.
I think, like I said, I want him on the roster, but at the same time, if he is on the roster, he's not going to develop.
No.
But I think he's the sort of player that Bulls really do need to keep around and try to develop. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you got these sort of 4 players that we've said are fighting for this roster spot. Has he got the most to fight for? Has
you
he
would
got?
think so.
Because it's his spot to lose, isn't it? And
Yeah.
he's still trying to prove himself as this European that's coming over, and
Yeah,
so hopefully he's got enough about him as a character, as a person to. There's that picture that we used quite a lot where he's got the blood coming from his eyebrow. That's, to me, that's the image I have of him in training camp now. Is he's going to bleed as much as he needs to bleed to prove I want that spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so U for me, U for you. U for you, U for me. And obviously the last one for tonight is Matas Buzelis, the rookie.
Yep.
Obviously, anybody who does listen to this knows that I've had a few possibly controversial sort of takes on him. A few takes away from the norm, shall we say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about him and your thoughts on him first off.
Well, look, at the moment, all we can do is really go off what we've seen and what we've heard from when he played in the G League with Ignite and what we saw in Summer League. And he's raw. He needs a lot of work. He certainly isn't coming in ready to go. He definitely needs to work on a lot of things in his game, especially his shooting. But what is there is stuff that's harder to teach, which is his attitude, his mentality, his fierceness on the court. He is not afraid to take on anybody, and I love that. And I know that's something that you like about him too, even though you see other flaws maybe that other people don't. But I like him. He's definitely for the future with this Bulls team. I definitely think that if they mold him and develop him in the correct way, that he is definitely going to be a major part of the future of this franchise. And I'm excited to see what he can do. And I hope he gets enough of an opportunity to do that, to develop on the floor, to expand his game, to, smooth out those rough edges a little bit, I guess. And I'm looking forward to seeing that too. And hopefully he becomes a more polished product by the end of the season. I'm not going to give my grade straight away. I'll let you have your say, but I do like a lot about Matas, and hopefully he gets enough tick to improve himself.
Yeah, and just going back to the podcast P episode, Paul George mentions, and
I didn't realize you were going to go and listen to the podcast P episode next.
Yeah, he says that obviously he's seen bits of him and he likes his game basically, and how Matas sort of said to him that he kind of models a lot of his game on Paul George and stuff like that. So he's obviously getting a little bit of a reputation around the league already, which is good to see.
Yeah,
I think
making friends with people like Shaq is also a good move.
Yeah, and look, I know I've said that Obviously, sort of curb your expectations with him. I think that Dalen Terry possibly offers more this year than what Matas will. Obviously, I gave my reasons for that, and I think, like I've said, I'm not out on him by any means because I've not seen him. So I can't be out on him. I just don't think that this is his year. I think it's this year for him is going to be find your feet, like you say, iron out the faults in his game, smooth them over. He hasn't. It's like with his shot. It's not a bad shot.
No,
it just doesn't fall. The mechanics of his shot are there, but obviously that's what Peter Patton and the team are going to have to look at is why is it not falling? What is it about your shot that it isn't making it? It's not going in. Basically, there must be something that the experts are going to see. Basically, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it may very well be a small tweak that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it could be like a little kink in his wrist at the on the release or anything. Something that you don't really see until you slow it all down or whatever. And I think that's just basically what this year is going to be for him is a development year. And that's why I'm not as saying he's going to be the rookie of the year because, for one, I don't think he's going to get enough minutes. I think the minutes he does get is going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Fans are going to be wanting to see him. And fans are not going to get on his back when he makes mistakes because I think his attitude is, well, that's happened, move on. And I think the fans will get on board with that. And it'll be, he might brick a 3, but then the next play, he'll attack the rim and he'll try and rip the rim down.
Yeah.
So the fans will be like, oh, well, forget about the 3. So, like I say, I'm not out on him. I just don't think this is his year.
Yeah.
I think, but he is definitely one for the future. And he could possibly turn out to be the face of the franchise by the end of his rookie deal if he gets extended and stuff like that. I do have them kind of hopes for him, but it's like year by year, basically. It's not gonna happen now, basically.
Yeah.
So in terms of grade, I've gone with a C.
All right, and I've gone for a C+.
Yeah, I think for me, I just said a C because I think we're going to be excited when we see him, but I don't think we see enough of him initially.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think his minutes will be fairly limited unless he can make some sort of a major impact. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we see him in quite a few highlight reels throughout the course of the season too.
Yeah. And again, to me, it's the questions around the roster that, to me, you can't grade him properly because Zach's here, but how long is Zach going to be here for? If Zach leaves, does he take some of Zach's minutes? If Lonzo plays, does he take some of Matas's minutes that he could potentially get? I know the different positions and stuff like that, but obviously the way the rotations work, you just don't know. I think he is pretty much a lock in the rotation.
Yeah.
It's just where and how many minutes.
Exactly. How many minutes? That's the question. Yeah.
So
he sees floor time though, definitely.
Oh yeah, because I think he has to.
Yeah.
I think Bulls fans would try and rip the UC down if he doesn't after they've attacked Billy and AK and Jerry and whoever else.
Eversley.
Yeah.
Getting away with it in the background.
So yeah, that's it for tonight. There are 3 players just to get us started. Obviously by week we will do more and more building up to the season. Let us know in the comments down below your grades, predictions for the expectations for the players mentioned. Just any comments basically. You know, we do read them and we do reply to them. So yeah, I've got nothing else. I don't know if you have.
Not a thing.
So yeah, we will be back next week. And if we're on our own, as in we haven't got a guest, we will be obviously moving on with our expectations. Maybe get a few more players in if there's any more content or whatever. But yeah, until then, like I say, don't forget to drop your comments, your predictions, and what have you. And until then, I've been Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you'll find me on Twitter at NeilCRedUK. On behalf of Matt and myself and the Fans First Sports Network, thanks once again to everyone for tuning in. From us both, remember, it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever in the world you are. And until next time, see red people and go Bulls.